Is Sam Leavitt ready to take over the Sun Devils and be the guy who turns them around?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcasts. Stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrats36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs have finished up, the sports just aren't sporting like we want them to right now. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in and welcome to our newest series as we begin taking a look at the Sun Devils players on offense and predicting their stats. We got highs, we got lows, we got my predictions. And if you were not here last year for this series, let me introduce you to the rules, and I will remind you of the rules for each episode. But essentially, what we are doing is we are predicting a best case, a worst case, and then my opinion on certain statistics. So for quarterback Sam Leavitt today, we're going to look at passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions, completion percentage. Wide receivers will be receptions, yards, touchdowns. Running backs will be rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and then receiving stats. We're going to be taking a look at that for each position. Now, there are a couple stipulations here. The first one is this is all based on the assumption that they are either starting or they are going to be in a big, significant role for the team. That means if I were to compare 5 different receivers, and I said 3 of them, best case scenario is 1,000 yards. I am not saying ASU would have 3,000-yard receivers. That is, instead, what I'm saying is that is a best case scenario for them. Each player is looked at as an individual. It is not based off of the group. So sure, I could say ASU has 3 potential 1,000-yard receivers, 2 potential 1,000-yard rushers. That does not mean I expect 5 guys to eclipse 1,000 yards. That's not what that means. Now that that's out of the way, the last stipulation is this is also on the assumption that they are starting, significant role, and are not hampered with injuries. We don't do injuries on this show. I don't. I don't care if Richie Bradshaw, going into his 6th year of college, has never played a full season. We would look at Richie Bradshaw as if he is going to play all 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 games. That's the way this works. Now that that's out of the way, Sam Leavitt, quarterback for the Sun Devils, taking over as the starter after Jaden Rashada was usurped of his role during spring and then opted to enter the transfer portal. Leavitt comes to Arizona State, a former 4-star recruit out of high school. Played in 4 games for Michigan State last year, so he was able to maintain his redshirt in those 4 games. He completed 15 of 23 passes for 139 yards, 2 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He also tallied 67 yards on the ground and completed 65.2% of his passes. Small sample size, looks fine. Nothing too crazy. You just don't have a lot of sample size. So this is not only going to be based off of an assumption of what Leavitt can do, but also kind of taking a look at what the Sun Devils quarterbacks did last year and seeing how they may improve or not improve. You have a new offensive coordinator there in Marcus Arroyo. Kenny Dillingham is back, but this is potentially going to be a much different offense than last year. And that might be a very good thing because last year ASU just did not get very much done through the air. They desperately need to get better as a passing team. And I think that Leavitt could be the guy to do that, which is why where we start with the passing yards, I will say a best case scenario is ASU does end up getting 3,000 yards out of Sam Leavitt. It's been a minute since ASU has had an efficient enough passer to throw for 3,000 yards. This is such a best case scenario to the point where it feels almost unrealistic. But if everything clicks, you've got a guy who is a capable thrower, somebody who is talented enough to make throws at all three levels of the field. If he is able to create the chemistry with his receivers, with Jordyn Tyson, with Troy Omeire, whoever else is out there, if he is able to establish that chemistry, he's got the talent. This would be the same thing if it was Jaden Rashada. I would tell you that Rashada could maybe throw for 3,000 yards as well. That feels like a best case scenario, and everything has to click. It's not just the quarterback. You need the guys to catch the football. You need the guys to make plays once the ball is in their hands too. It's not just a matter of delivering the ball. You hope that Melcon Stovall can rip off a 50-yard run after catch kind of situation. Like, you're hoping that everything will culminate together to result in one of the best passing offenses the Sun Devils have had in the last 10 years. But again, that's a very high standard. For what it's worth, ASU collectively threw for 2,500 yards last year with 4 different quarterbacks and 6 different people throwing a football for them. In a worst case scenario, this could be a drastically bad year. I am saying absolute worst case for Sam Leavitt is 1,600 yards. And this would be really predicated on not having any chemistry with his receivers or just flat out being a bad fit for the offense. For what it's worth, he could throw even less than 1,600 yards if he gets benched at any point in the year, which is always a possibility. But again, I don't predict that stuff. 1,600 feels like a really, really bad worst case scenario. If he started 12, 13 games, it's hard to envision him throwing less than 2,000 yards. But if nothing goes right for this offense, 1,600, I think, is the worst that it could get. Again, you combined for 2,500 last year, and that's about what I think Leavitt should be able to get realistically without my absolute best case scenario. This is an offense that, even though you lost Jalen Conyers, you lost Elijhah Badger, you lost 2 of your top weapons, there's still guys here. Jordyn Tyson looks like a star in the making. Troy Omeire, one of my favorite receivers. Guillory is still here. Melcon Stovall is here. They've got some weapons at tight end like Jaden Fortier. There's guys here to be able to help this offense open up a lot more than it was last year, which will lead to my final prediction. I am going to say Sam Leavitt throws for 2,400 yards. It's a little less than what the team had last year, but you would trade 2,500 collective yards from 6 different people for 2,400 yards from one guy. I mean, I would at least, and I wouldn't think twice about it. I think that'd be a slam dunk transition for me. 124 less yards, but it's all coming from one player instead. ASU just needs consistency at the quarterback spot this year. They had none of that last year because of injury, because of poor play on the field. You get any kind of consistency out of Sam Leavitt this year, you take it, you run, and you're thrilled about it. That's where I sit here with Sam Leavitt, is I think that as long as he's able to play all the games and play at a decent enough level, the bar is low. The bar is very low. We're not asking Sam Leavitt to be a Heisman Trophy contender, but we need him to be able to lead the offense. To me, 2,400 yards would lead the offense very, very efficiently, especially if you were able to get good play from his cast of weapons. And that includes the backfield with Cameron Skattebo and everybody else. There is enough weapons here to make the life of Sam Leavitt a little bit easier. Now we're going to go ahead and move on and talk about the touchdowns and the interceptions that I could see for Sam Leavitt. We'll hop into that in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because of the eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Wherever you get those podcasts, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Back into our conversation and predicting the stats for Sam Leavitt. Let's go ahead and hop over to touchdowns. This has got to be so significantly better. Last year, the Sun Devils had, as a team, 8 touchdown passes. 4 of those came from Jaden Rashada in 3 games. 1 of those came from running back Cameron Skattebo. You had 3 touchdown passes between Trenton Bourguet, Drew Pine, Jacob Conover. That's about as bad as it's going to get. It has to be so much better. 8 total touchdowns between 6 guys who threw a pass last year. That's atrocious. We can just call it as it is. The bar for Sam Leavitt, once again, is not very high. In a best case scenario from Sam Leavitt, I think 20 touchdowns is the highest I can go. Even then, that feels pretty high. I think a more realistic would be between 16 to 18 touchdowns. 20 would be massive, especially if you combine the best case scenarios together. 3,000 passing yards, 20 touchdowns. That's a phenomenal year for Sam Leavitt. 20 touchdowns, that's a lot, man. That's a lot for an ASU quarterback right now, especially with losing Elijhah Badger and especially with losing Jalin Conyers. You are going to be your number one receiver, Jordyn Tyson, did not play last year. The cast of guys next to him, Xavier Guillory had 21 catches. Troy Omeire had 20. Milcon Stovall had 18. You don't have a lot of sample size from the rest. It's a lot of projection here. 20 touchdowns combined from those 4 receivers. Hopefully Cameron Skattebo can get in the end zone, and hopefully you can get some production from your tight ends. Maybe you're able to scrum those 20 together. But again, I think a more realistic would be between 16 and 18. Best case scenario, he can get to 20, maybe a little more than that. But at that point, I think it's a lot more help from the offensive structure of itself. You might have a running game that is so good that you are able to suck the defense in and then get those big plays down the field. Now, in a worst case scenario, ASU had 8 touchdown passes last year. I'll say 10 is the worst. It's an increase. It's still not great. Sam Leavitt last year had 2 touchdowns against 2 interceptions in 4 games. I do not anticipate he is going to be this stat machine for ASU. And going into his first full year as a starter, there could be some growing pains here. It's a new offense. It's a new location. Tempe is very different from East Lansing. This is not going to be an easy transition for him. And if it is, then I mean, power to him. But 10 touchdowns feels like the worst possible. My prediction, like I said, 16 to 18 feels realistic. I'm going with 16. I'm going to say he gets 16 passing touchdowns. It's going to be divided up primarily, I would tell you, between one of the tight ends, Jordyn Tyson, and Troy Omeire. I think are going to get the bulk of those touchdowns. In a best case scenario of 16, it would be pretty cool if he split half of those with different receivers. If he had 8 different receivers catch a touchdown pass, that'd be really, really cool for ASU. Last year, they had 4 guys who caught a touchdown pass for you. Double that, that sounds great. You're spreading the offense out. I don't care if the leading receiver has 2. I just want to see that Sam Leavitt has the ability to push the ball at every level of the field, distribute it equally, and be an efficient enough passer. Interceptions. ASU had 14, excuse me. ASU had 14 interceptions last year. In a worst case scenario, the highest I could see is 15. I think you'd be right there, 14 to 15 interceptions. I will stick at 15. That's what I have written down. This to me would be more representative of growing pains for Sam Leavitt, because there's definitely the possibility that he comes out and struggles in a team that really struggled offensively last year. It could be very similar for him this year. A lowest amount of interceptions, a best case scenario, I'm going to go 7. I still feel like it could be closer to 10. To me, if he's getting lower than 7, then we're just not throwing the football. It has nothing to do with Sam Leavitt as a high upside player. To me, the interceptions are going to be a lot more reflective on whether or not he's really struggling, as well as how the offense is moving. So I know that's kind of contradictory the more I think about it. He could throw less than 5 interceptions this year. That to me would tell me that the offense is really, really run heavy, or Sam Leavitt is a god. About 7 interceptions as a best case, I think that tells me that they trusted Leavitt enough to be the guy. They trusted him enough to be the starting quarterback for the team for the entirety of the season. And yeah, that's about where I'm at with it. My prediction, I'm going to go with 9. I'm going to say that he's able to take care of the ball enough to warrant getting a chance week after week. I really, in my heart of hearts, believe that Leavitt could end up having a great year. But you're also asking a guy who only played 4 games last year, sparingly 4 games last year, to come to a new team with a new offensive coordinator, not just for him, but for the team that lost their number 1 receiver and their number 1 tight end. That's a lot to ask for anyone. You could bring Carson Beck to this offense from Georgia. You would not expect Carson Beck to put together a Heisman Trophy campaign here. Jaden Rashada coming back. I don't know that you would be. I don't know if it would be fair to anticipate Rashada to have this breakout year. It's not. It's so many different things to me that play into the way that Leavitt could end up rolling out this year. But I will tell you, I think 9 is fair. I wouldn't be surprised if it was more. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't have many at all. It's just going to depend how this offense ends up shaking out. To me, the interceptions will be, I'll say the interceptions definitively, because I know I'm going back and forth right now. I will say the interceptions will be more reflective of the way the offense is run compared to Sam Leavitt. Hopefully it ends up working out. But again, recap, I think the best case scenario would be 20 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. I think the worst case is 10 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. And my prediction will be 16 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. We're going to go ahead and talk about some miscellaneous stats here in just a moment before we ask and answer the question, can Leavitt turn around the Sun Devils in 2024? We'll talk about it in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. I love sports, and I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But the playoffs are done, and we're getting fewer games. The sports just aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. One more time, wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Wrapping it up, I've got a couple of miscellaneous stats here, and then we ask and answer the question, can Leavitt turn this program around? Miscellaneous stats, I got 2. I got completion percentage, and I got a couple of rushing stats. Best case scenario for completion, I'm going to say 65%. That's what Leavitt was at last year on 23 attempts. ASU as a team completed 55.2%, which is where my low worst case scenario will be 55%. I'm going to go closer to the low here. I'm going to say 59%. I think that this is going to be a growing year for Leavitt. To me, this is a fair ask for him, is to be floating around 60%. This will be not one of the most important stats for me. Unless it truly is like he is just flat out missing balls and throws and anything else at any level of the field, I think the completion percentage is going to be one of the least important stats for the offense this year. Rushing stats, Leavitt can run a little bit. Last year, he ran for 67 yards on 13 carries. He did have 3 sacks that he took, so I would venture around 80 rushing yards on 10 carries. He can move. I think ASU is going to ask him to be not a dual threat, not a mobile quarterback, just somebody that can extend the play with his legs. I'll say I don't have a high or low here. I'm just going to say about 200 rushing yards would be my prediction. And 3 rushing touchdowns. I'll go 3 rushing touchdowns. Last year, Trenton Bourguet had 2. That seems doable. I just don't anticipate the quarterbacks to really have a big role in the rushing game. Besides Jeff Sims, who I think he's going to get a bigger role than we think. But neither here nor there. The question now, is Sam Leavitt ready to take over the Sun Devils and turn this program around? It's a big ask. It would be a big ask of Jaden Rashada if he returned. It'd be a big ask of anybody. You are hoping that you see the pieces start falling together for Kenny Dillingham in this offense in year 2. I don't think it's fair to ask Leavitt to instantly turn the program around. I do think by late October to early November, you are hoping to see that Leavitt is capable of doing that. You are, first of all, you're hoping that you're going to be in range for a bowl game. By late October, you're probably hoping you've got at least 3 wins to be able to try and get those last 3 games. It's going to be a very pivotal time for Sam Leavitt to see where he is at in his development by this point in time. Is he ready to turn the program around? It's difficult to really say. I would lean towards no. And the reason why I would lean towards no is simply because he is so raw. It has nothing to do with his talent, because I think that Leavitt is someone that is more than capable of turning ASU around. But as of June 27th, 2024, as I'm recording this, I think that ASU is still a little bit away offensively from turning this thing around. By late October, early November, we will have a very good idea of the future of this program offensively. If Leavitt is getting the job done, then yeah, he's the guy. He's going to turn it around. And who knows, maybe ASU already has 6 wins by then, and they are a bowl-eligible team at that point. We'll wait and see. The reason I hesitate, I don't know how fair it is to ask Leavitt to instantly turn this program around. I think we need to be fair, we need to be realistic, and we need to be understanding of the situation that he's being placed in. This is not an easy situation for anyone. You ask Jaden Rashada to do this, it's tough. We will see how everything plays out. Let's go over the stats one more time as we round this up. In a best case scenario, across the board, I will say that Leavitt throws 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns to 7 interceptions while completing 65% of his passes. Worst case scenario, I will say 1,600 passing yards, 10 touchdowns to 15 interceptions, and 55% completion. My overall prediction, 2,400 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 59% completion. If he hits all of the best case scenarios, then ASU's winning 7 games, at least 8 games, possibly. In a worst case scenario where everything is just bad, I don't know if ASU is winning 3 games. This is a difficult schedule that they're facing, and if they have the quarterback play they had last year, it's going to be difficult to win 3 games. My overall prediction, I think that ASU is a bowl team. ASU gets consistent, reliable production out of Sam Leavitt. This is a bowl team. The defense is more than good enough. The run game will be able to help Leavitt out. You're going to be looking for Leavitt to efficiently run the offense, for Kenny Dillingham's offense to take a step forward, and for Marcus Arroyo to really flourish as an offense coordinator for the Sun Devils. It's a lot of asks. I think it's possible. What do you guys think? What are your predictions? Am I way off base? Am I spot on? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. But wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcasts. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. We will be back again tomorrow as we have another player interview, as we sit down and have a conversation with friend of the podcast, CJ Fight. Make sure you guys tune in It'll be dropped on Saturday. I'll see you then. Till next time, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun.